In this video, I want to talk about the template and the pattern recognition again. And the reason that I'm doing this is that I'm realizing how big this is, how complicated it is, and how our lives are so busy. It's hard for us to wire our brains to see it. I'm working on it daily, and I get a lot of time I spend on it, and I realize, oh my God, this is hard to see. When I was working full time, there was no way I could have gotten here. It is complicated. Okay, I've been asked a couple of times to, kind of stick on, if I'm covering a topic, if I'm talking about Jesus, can I stick with Jesus instead of saying, okay, here's Jesus, and we can pick it up from Lao Tzu and from Buddha, and here are comparisons, which works. However, most people are like, I don't know anything about Lao Tzu. I don't know anything about Buddha. I don't know what you're talking about. You're not helping when you do that. It actually makes it more confusing. There's a point where I just realized that's the scope of it. Thousands of years ago, intelligent people figured something out, and they created this monomyth template based on the human life, and it began going into the population. As the population grew and emerged, imagine people out of control needing guidance. These stories are going to be doing that. They're going to be providing guidance. But at any rate, so they're doing this, and we are here. Here's what I'm doing. I'm looking for the patterns because that is what teaches me what they're doing. We know patterns. Let's take easy ones. The flood story. I don't know how many times that appears. We know of two big ones because Christianity likes to say their flood story is first and that the Enuma Elish flood story is wrong and copied from them, despite the fact that it's older and everything else. Okay, we have a lot of flood stories, all the way up to Plato and the city of Atlantis sinking beneath the sea. And remember, Atlantis is three, if you're on board with this, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, three things. There's three rings. The inside is the temple area. It disappears below the sea, not to come back. And of course, the pattern recognition comes in here too. If you were to read the Enuma Elish or the Atrahasis, the first flood story, what you realize is that the reason the flood happens is because Earth has become overrun and too raucous. It's full of all kinds of issues. That's our earlier self. You get to the flood story in Genesis, and it's actually the same thing. It's a different verbiage, different analogs, but it's still a flood story. And what happens? Why is there a flood? Because God says that everything's out of control. I got to wipe it out and start over again. Same thing as the Atrahasis. Then what happens in Plato's story, since we're using that as an example, the place got too evil and full of greed and things like that, so it sunk beneath the sea. They are all on that template. They're different stories on one template. You can see that. They're all existing for the same reason. It sounds like a lost tribe of Israel to me, often gone somewhere. All these stories are getting someplace. People love them as supernatural. Let's go play with this. It really happened. The giants were really here. The Watchers came down from heaven and had sex with nice-looking women. It's like, oh, really? I don't know why people buy onto it. Oh, my gosh. But most humans do that. There's not many of us that are going to go, yeah, there's something there. But that carrier shell, that's for you to carry. I want to get what's inside of there. And then people get pissed off at you for finding something in there that they don't want it to be there. They want their explanation to be right. Anyway, okay, flood stories are easy to spot. And the flood, where it sequences is right where we need a rebirth. The flood is going to be an analog for purging yourself. All your earlier self, I'd say, I hate you, I hate this, I don't like that, I drink, I do all this crap. All those things in our early self when you're like, oh my God, I got to change my life. That's where the rebirth happens. You need a flood to wipe that out, or forgiveness, or there's a number of ways of carrying that, but the flood stories exist right there. That is for purging the self. That one's easy to see. They start getting more complicated though. Some that are kind of reason them through. Buddha and karma. The idea of karma is really reciprocity. It's cause and effect. It is, I retain some sort of energy, and because of that energy, my life experience is going to continue to go along those lines. It's not this Western idea. I did something nice for them, so there's something nice coming back. It's a bigger flow than that, and it's more nebulous. It's really from up here. But at any rate, okay. Then you go to Jesus, and Jesus doesn't teach karma, does he? Yeah. the measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. Whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so unto them, blah, blah. It goes on. It's a number of times in there. They're all meaning the same thing. That's karma. And you start looking at that and going, they're both teaching that same thing, just using different verbiage. I wonder how far that goes. Then it starts getting thick. Okay, I'm going to talk about something that in pattern recognition, I've got a couple of examples here that I want to show you. There's a point in all of the teaching material, and if you've been following my work, you kind of get this already, but if not, let me just tell you that there's a point in time where the teaching is telling us that we emerged from wherever we came from. We became products of that it was our life experiences and the way that we hold those life experiences that continue to unfold for us in the way that we're living life. And that what happened as we started getting older, as we started having our normal life experiences, getting in trouble, getting hurt, getting molested, getting raped, stealing things, doing stuff kids do, getting into some sort of point in time where you're an adult in life later thinking, what happened to me? I was a happy kid one time. Now I'm mad at that. This is the point where we go on the journey and start turning in. But there's a way to carry that story that your first self, your original self, the person that you become when you're living life, when you're not awake and you're just experiencing life, judging life, storing that away and becoming products of what you're storing away up here, that those things right there and the things that we have, the memories of experiences, the hurt stuff that we have to resolve, all of that is going to be a part of the teaching. That if you got hurt, you have to forgive. You're never going to forget. But that hurt won't come and get you anymore. What I'm going to do is show 3 different ways in different material where this appears. And this is why sometimes the pattern recognition kind of goes off the deep end. You're like, what? Yeah, okay, let's take a look at it and see. My first example is going to come from the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. This is from Tablet 4. This is as early in history as I can find this example right here. And what I'm going to do is first talk about this. We've got something here, Tiamat, a war leader. I'm not going to, I'll just kind of tell you what's going on here. Initially, what's happening in the Enuma Elish is that there's a creation. We emerge, we begin to have life experiences that are being held in this idea that our first self is evil and that it takes over and that there are gods. The gods are going to create something called a Gigi. And what they represent is the parts of us that when we are not awake, when we're acting out, when we are whatever it is that blows out of us or comes out of us, or the things that we hold inside of us that are not good things, but they emerge, those are what are being held here. That there's something about us earlier in life before we're awake, and we're not in charge, we're not paying attention, we're not mentally there. We're living through our life experiences. We haven't separated from it yet. That the story is representing that part of us. And right here where we're at right here, I'm going to read this after this. When he had killed their war leader Tiamat, this is who is coming back to, this is our later self going back to wipe out our earlier self. Watch what happens here, though, as we get down to the bottom. After this, when he killed their leader Tiamat, he caused their legions to disperse. Her army was in disarray, and the gods who were her allies, who had stood beside her, all of them shook in fear, were struck with terror and fled. Now, these gods are the things like, I acted out and I lost control. That's a god and it's a bad god because it took over. It was in charge. Damn you, kid, whatever it is that we're doing. That's how I was raised. Bam, bam. So, those are the kind of things that act out of us, that are the gods that we need to get rid of. All of them shook in fear, were stuck with terror and fled. Yet he allowed them to give themselves up, sparing them, since they were once encircled and not allowed to escape. So he had them bound and destroyed all of their weaponry, and they were trapped within a net, and there they remained. Then they shrank back, overcome as they were by despair, but they endured this affliction of being incarcerated. Now, what I'm going to suggest here is that these, since they are representing things that we used to believe or think or feel, or derogatory experiences, anything that keeps us off of our path that we want to get rid of because it's hurting our life and hurting the life of the people around us as we do that. We're the ones waking up and doing this. That what is happening here is that these gods are being trapped. They're inside of us. The gods represent a memory and an emotional state of that memory. That's what it is. That's what the God is. That's what the seed is. That's what's planted in the garden. Any of those analogous terms are going to be holding this idea that something is inside of us that comes out that we don't like, or that grows, that it emerges. But it's a memory, and it's encircled. So he had them bound and destroyed all of their weaponry. So you trap it and get rid of their capacity to act out. This is analogous to the idea that we have a memory. I got raped. I got molested. I am so mad that I can't survive. I hate, I hurt, I don't have successful whatever, all kinds of things. And you realize, oh my God, it's hinging on this right here. And I have to go resolve that. So this is the idea that we're gathering that up. It's a memory that's never going to go away, so it's going to be trapped, but you have to take away its capacity to act out, which means changing the emotional state of it. Does that make sense? Let's go look at something else. This one is going to come from the book of Enoch. This is early Jewish material. Genesis time frame. Okay, so since we shifted from Babylonian material to Jewish material, we are going to have to shift analogs. They're going to be teaching the same thing, but they're not going to be replicating each other's work. They're going to both carry the template, but the people have to believe something differently. The Jews are not going to follow the Babylonians. The Christians are not going to follow the Jews. This goes on. We have to continue to update this. I'm just going to read my highlighted part there. And again the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and split open the desert which is in Dudael, and cast him in, and fill the hole by covering him with rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him live there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. Okay, Azazel in this case is what represents our older self, our earlier self. This is the part of us that is younger and says, yeah, up yours. I know what life is all about. Everything's fine. Now we're at that point where we're thinking, oh my gosh, no, there's only one life. I better get it straight. This represents us going back and taking the power away from our earlier self. So this teaching is, it's here. It is in here. And like in the Babylonian example, what we see is in the end, whatever this evil thing is put away and rendered. Well, how come it's not just killed and gone? It can't be, because it's a memory. It has to be trapped and rendered ineffective. That means changing the emotional state of it. The shame is what acts out. You must change the reason you feel shame. That requires forgiveness. That changes the life. That is very difficult to undertake. And it's time-consuming. It's hard. You have to face fears. Religions can allow you to hang on to something without facing that stuff. But the comfort that you get is what? It's a delayed comfort. Life still sucks, but that's okay. When I die, yeah, I'm not going to wait. All right. Let's go look at one more example. And I'm grabbing some random things and leaving the Bible alone for a reason. Oh, I got my things going on. Okay, this comes from the second book of Adam and Eve, chapter 4, verse 5. And what we have here is Adam is now who we are. That's our conscious, our self. And that Satan is the bad guy here, right? See, Adam? Look at him bound in your presence, in the air, unable to flee away. So I say to you, do not be afraid of him. From now on, take care and beware of him. He will try to do things to you. Then God drove Satan away from Adam. And then it moves on. But this is actually the same thing. You can see, look at him bound in your presence, in the air, up in your higher self, unable to flee away. It can't escape. Don't be afraid of him. From now on, take care and beware of him. So don't be afraid of it. Take care, but it will try to do things to you. We're still going to have temptations. It's still going to happen. This is why it's hard to see the template. You're looking for conceptual ideas that are held in these stories. We have to become the story. The story is us. That's how we find what's in there. That's why I bounce it around, and that's why it seems like when people are like, my God, can you keep it simple? And I'm like, no, I cannot. Absolutely not. It isn't simple. I used to think, how can I make it simple? And there's a point where I'm learning more. I'm figuring it out. I'm finding stuff like this. I still don't have independent corroboration from anybody else saying, oh yeah, I'm trying what you're talking about and I'm coming up with the same answers you are. So I still don't know if I'm just making this up or not. But I don't think so, because it is so freaking consistent. It's just got to be right. And I think that it is something that it was known at one point in time. Our media today, look at all the media moguls, people that just really know what's going on. At some point in time, 3,500 years ago, this is the earlier version of that. There's people that know what's going on that are making these stories, and they're doing them in such a way that we can start recognizing these patterns in there and seeing what is in there and realizing that the template exists everywhere. What it is carried within is incredibly variable. What can you think of in your mind? But making that even more complicated is that the analogous terms they're using, let's try to come up with a modern example. Let's say I was writing a story about somebody looking for enlightenment, and one of the things they had to do was move from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. And in a story later, people would go, oh, I don't even know what that means. However, if somebody knew, oh, Las Vegas means Sin City, and Los Angeles is the city of angels, there's something nested in there that's deeper. Except I don't know what their analogs mean. I don't know what their sin cities are. We can kind of extract that by seeing what they're doing. Oh, this was a bad place. They were at this city. Now they're here. There's rulers. Those rulers existed, but were they good? Were they bad? They're representing something. They're not just there as placeholders. So the analogs are, you're like, I don't know what they mean. You see, it can be a struggle. And there's too much of it. I mean, this happens in Greek myth. How much Greek myth is there? Oh my gosh. The Mahabharata. Hinduism. The network is huge of these stories on the template. Once you learn to read them and how to read them, and it's that mental played out in the mind process, figure out what the analogs are, clean the inside of your cup. Get rid of that stuff. Remove the mote from your eye. Get rid of that stuff. Get a new wine, a new wineskin before you try to put new wine into it. Purge yourself before you get a new life. Blessed are the poor in spirit. All of it is right there, right here. Empty out. Find peace. Okay. That's why I can't explain it quickly, and maybe there's a point where I can, and there's people that actually have studied like I have, and they're like, oh yeah, I know what you're doing with Buddha and Lao Tzu. Yeah, I see that. But most people haven't, and it takes kind of a more global awareness of other material. And then once you're open to that and seeing it, and you're not averse to reading it and seeing something in there, the stuff opens up. As long as we are open-minded to the idea that there's something in there for us. Not open-minded to the idea that there's something supernatural I'm supposed to believe in. I'll never find it. Everybody that believes in supernatural, for many, stand outside the narrow gate, looking outward where all paths lead to destruction, but it's very few that will enter the narrow gate. Everybody that is waiting for Jesus to come back or trying to figure out where Atlantis actually sank, they're living in the supernatural world. They're not seeing the template, the pattern. We've lost that. I'm finding it accidentally. Life's getting busier. I think it's going to get harder to find. But it's discoverable. Anybody can see it. You can look at it. If you take the time and wire your brain, you're like, okay, yeah, I do see that. And I find that making the videos is a boon. If I study this stuff and read it, a little bit comes to me. As soon as I start making videos and putting this stuff out there and people exchange with me, whoa, wow, it's like the brain grows so much more. So So it's beneficial to talk about this and try to figure it out, teach it. There's more left over than when you started. That's a fun story. You know what? It continues to get... There's more layers to it. This part that we just covered, this appears in the template of the monomyth, the hero's journey. You could go to the Dhammapada and you won't find it in Buddha's teaching. You can go to the Tao Te Ching and you won't find it in Lao Tzu's teaching right there. You can go to Jesus's material, Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, Gospel of Thomas. It's not there. Those are teaching all of this material, but they're not doing it on the monomyth template. They're not doing it in a story format. They're doing it in a, here are cryptic lessons for you. Figure it out. Anyway, you will not find this example in every piece of material, but it doesn't need to be there. We don't need to know that has to happen. This is this is a storytelling culture. They're trying to teach, and how many details can you put in? Make it bigger. Make it bigger. They got no phones. Okay. Hope this was helpful. It'll be helpful to the pattern seekers, I think. People that are looking for the template. These are the kind of things we're looking for. Conceptual ideas, what's happening. Hope this was helpful. Love one another. And we'll see you in the next video.